There's a few. Getting promotion with Newcastle at Plymouth when the card came on, that was good. 4-4 Newcastle Arsenal was good. Debut, first goal. You know, key things that you think it was. If I had to pick one.
What was your first goal?
I scored my second or third game I think, against Spurs at White Hart Lane. And it deflected, but it would have actually been a better goal had it not deflected. I think Robinson was the keeper at the time, we were never getting it. And it deflected into the other corner, so we had absolutely no chance of getting it. But it was on target, I think it was going in anyway. So yeah, your first goal you remember, because you always dream about scoring in the Premier League, and not being someone who'd scored a lot of goals. I've never been like a major goal scorer. For me to score that in my third game was sort of a good way of getting the monkey off your back, you know, thinking, oh, I've eventually got one. So yeah, I would probably say scoring your first goal is your most memorable thing, because you dream about it as a kid, how you're going to celebrate, and everything goes out the window and you don't do anything. I think the most difficult one I've had to make was probably leaving Newcastle, for a number of reasons. I've sort of gone in and gone over before, but leaving Newcastle, knowing that I was still playing well enough, I still had a good rapport with the manager, I still had a good rapport with the fans, wanted to stay, they wanted me to stay, and yet fell out with someone who owned the club and his, you want to say hired hand, but I would say puppet more than anything. And ultimately, you know, sort of made my position untenable, and I had to leave the club. It's something that you never want to do, never want to leave a place that you've really enjoyed playing, but such is life, and we make these decisions, and you know, you move on. But you know, fortunately for me, every time I go back there, every time I meet someone who supports a club, I have you know, always end up chatting with them, and always ends up really being a really positive experience, and always sharing positive stories. And they always say about coming back, or you know, the fact that they'd still love to see you playing there. So that always, you know, when people that you've played for and they've seen the effort you've given on the pitch, still speak fondly of you, I think it's that's always a great thing. Me and Kev never actually played centre mid. This is a funny thing. This is a common misconception that we actually never played centre mid. It was always me check Tiote, or Kev check Tiote, me on the right. So yeah, although we had a great rapport off the pitch and on, we actually very rarely played together as a two. As a two midfield, it was always I was either on the right, or one would be in the middle, or one would be off the front man. So yeah, I couldn't really put Kev there because we've never played together. Me and Czech obviously did okay, but I played more on the right really. So I played obviously with Johan Kabay a couple of times before he left. I've been fortunate really. I've played with some good players, you know, Didier Mann, Claudio Reyna, Paul Bosveld when I was at City. Who else did I play with there? Kev Orlock. I'm trying to think. Ali Benarbia, Ayel Bergovic. Then I went to Newcastle. Nicky Butt, Emre was a very, very good player. Yeah, so you know, you come to QPR. I played with Ali Fawn, who thinks a fantastic player. Went to Marseille, played with Benny Shearer, who's another great player, and Alexis Romero. So yeah, I know. Yeah, England. You know what I mean? It's difficult. The best I've played with. Who did I probably learn more from? I would say I wouldn't say the best. Who have I learned more from? I probably learned more from Ali Benarbia than any other. He was a fantastic player who, when by the time I played with him, his legs had sort of gone. You know, he was 30 plus, and you know, he was never a runner anyway, but he was a great brain, and sitting talking to him after training and so on and so forth. I also played with Pep Guardiola. He came on trial at City for a couple of weeks, and we would converse after training. City didn't, Stuart Pearce at the time, didn't sign him, didn't think he was a good enough player. But when he came, not a lot of people knew who he was, and I remember obviously watching sort of, you know, Barcelona when I was younger, and sort of like, wow, Guardiola's here. Never ever thinking he'd be the coach he was going to be. But I remember speaking to him after training, just watching him in them training sessions and learning loads from him. And I mean, you know, no, I don't think anyone knew he was going to go into the coaching world and do what he did. You know, he was a fantastic player. Best player I've played with, stop sitting on the fence, Ali Benabia. Because there is a lack of top quality English coaches.
Okay, so
That's answered your question. I've answered your question. Now, you've asked me, yeah, I could be here literally all day answering that. Yeah, and the reason we haven't got top quality players is because we haven't got top quality coaches.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I think the game is just in a bit of a weird situation at the minute. You know, it is difficult sometimes because when players are linked with moves over where their heads can be elsewhere, but maybe they're not held hostage, it's the wrong word, but maybe they're contractually obliged to stay where they are, and obviously they're thinking about being elsewhere, so it can be difficult. But you know, we've all had our heads turned at all varying times over your career, and you know, you've got pride as a professional, pride as a man. You know, you've got to go out and turn the performance. There's lots of players who probably, you know, didn't, you know, you wouldn't have to be entirely 150%, you know, committed to your club to turn in a performance. You can sometimes be turning a performance for yourself, for your family, for, you know, some people do it for finances, some people do it because they want to move somewhere else. You know, there's all varying, you know, everyone comes at it from a different angle. You know, not everyone's entirely the same in terms of what it takes to get a performance out of a player. But that's the thing, you know, my thing is the one thing you are in control of is the effort level you put in, and I think most fans can understand that players maybe want to leave their club and go if they get an opportunity to go and play maybe Champions League or a club higher up the table. But I think the one thing they can't forgive them for is when they do pull the shirt on, not trying or refusing to pull the shirt on. You know, if the move hasn't come about, I think that's wrong when that happens. But you know, it's an industry where, you know, players are traded, and you know, I've said before, I think players are at times like a commodity, and can also, you know, clubs can be keeping them to try and get more for their commodity, and all the while disrupting the player. And it's very seldom you see a player demand loyalty from the club, but very often you see the club demand loyalty from a player, which is a conversation for another day most probably. But yeah, I mean, that's a difficulty. I mean, generally when clubs, you know, don't think they're getting a fair price for the player or don't want to sell a player, then they demand loyalty. But you know, it's one of the better things about modern day football. When a player gets a bad injury or has a bad run of form, you don't tend to see the club demanding the same loyalty, or whether they don't play so well. So, you know, I think football does quite well in that, and I'm not here to sort of cane that. But yeah, it can be difficult at times, and I think as a football club you must, you know, you're a business and must run accordingly, and obviously that sometimes can be difficult to do when you're trying to be fair to everyone.